Hello there, welcome back. It's day 4 of Interactive Elements Week. I hope you have been enjoying all of the projects and videos so far. Today we're going to be taking a look at shaker elements. So I have both the stars and the hearts here, shaker dies, and we're going to be creating lots of projects. I'm going to show you traditional and non-traditional ways to use these dies. Let's go ahead and get into it. So I thought we'd start by putting together a very simple shaker card. I've already put this card together with the new Serenity line, and I have all of the center little squares I've already used up, but what I like to do is go around with my ink blending tool and ink up the outside of this circle here. Now we're just simply going to lay it on top of our circle, just lining it up with the edge like so. Very quick and easy. And now we can add in our sequin. I'm using a little bit of my anti-static powder pouch just to reduce the static so the sequins don't stick so bad. And you want to make sure you don't put too much. We want to be able to see our sentiment that we have stamped here. So I'm actually going to pull a few of those out. We want the sequins to rest below the sentiment. So that looks good. We can go ahead and remove the protective plastic coating on the foam. And now I'm using my scissors to lift up the protective film on our shaker window. All you have to do is line this up right on top of the foam there, and we're creating the shaker element inside. There's this top portion that cuts out with the stitching detail, and all of the shaker dies have this, just a different whatever shape they may be. So I like to use liquid glue so you can wiggle this into place and line it up perfectly. I went ahead and stamped a couple snowflakes from the new Elegant Snowflake stamp set. These are heat embossed with white pigment ink on sapphire cardstock. So I put glue on one half and then a little foam square on the other because part of it will be over that shaker window, and so that part gets the glue and the foam dot will go on the bottom side. Repeat the same process here. We don't want any saggy elements on our card face. So we'll just layer this one right over the top and this card is done. So that is the easiest way. You just lay the shaker element right on top of your card face. For our next project, we're going to be creating with the heart dies. So you can see we actually have 4 dies. I'm going to use this outline piece with the stitching detail, and then I want this piece here for the internal parts, and I'll show you what we're going to do with those. So you can see I have all these bits and pieces, and I love how it cuts the outline as well as the smaller inner portion of the heart. I've created a top folding note card in White Daisy, and slightly smaller is another card panel here. I'm layering those together with the margin around the edge. Now I have Post-it removable tape. This is a must-have in your craft room. I know there's different brands, but you'll need some type of removable tape. I'm using this same heart die and I'm layering it over both of those pieces of cardstock there. Now I've opened my card because I don't want it to cut all the way through, just these top 2 layers. So now we can separate all of our pieces here and just gently peel off your tape. And now we are going to create a see-through shaker. So you can see where I'm going with this. I have a little smudge, and so I'm just using my rub and remove eraser to clean that up. And I decided to emboss this with a floral lace embossing folder. So I just did that real quick, and look how pretty that is. You will need 2 pieces of acetate to create a see-through shaker, and of course your layer of foam. And again, from that Elegant Snowflake stamp set, we have You Melt My Heart. I thought this was the perfect sentiment to go along with our heart-shaped die. So keep your card closed. I have black ink, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment right in the window. You definitely want to do this before you build your shaker element because it's very easy to place your sentiment. So give it a good press, and I love that. And now I'm using liquid glass, and I'm going to adhere my first layer of acetate. So put it a little bit back from the edge so that when you press down, it doesn't squish out the side of our heart. So go ahead and layer your acetate over the top of that. and it does take a little bit to dry, so I'm gonna, let that set for a couple minutes. I like to run my paper piercer around the edge to separate this outer foam shape from the inner pieces. So now we can easily lift this up, just peeling it away from the backing sheet. We have our heart foam shape, and we're going to layer this over our acetate. This is much, much easier to do when you're directly over your card, but you guys don't want to look at the back of my head, so I'm at a slight disadvantage here, but I still managed to get it in place. I'm adding a little pinch of the Julep Loose Sequins. This julep color is so pretty. This was last year's color of the year. This year's Bluebell, and I love it just as much. So I'm adding some of those hearts and the outline shapes that we cut from with the shaker die. So I have those off to the side, and I'm just adding a few to our window, and then we can peel off this protective layer and we're ready to enclose our shaker element. Make sure you remove that protective layer from your acetate and then just put this right down on top of the foam. And now we have our see-through shaker card, and we can finish decorating the front. Using the leftover foam squares, I'm going to apply a generous layer to the back side. I've gone ahead and removed the protective covers, and lining this up, make sure you are centered before you press down. That looks pretty good. Get everything tacked down. And now I have just a little strip of pattern paper. This is from the Jingle Joy collection. Just a little pop of color we're going to put down on the bottom half of the card. And then, see how pretty that is? We can add our little element here. This is to finish off our shaker. I'm using liquid glue, and this is the outer edge of the heart with the stitching detail. Get this situated right over our window. And this card is just about done. I love the see-through element, how we can see right through to the sentiment. It's just really fun and a little bit different take on the shaker card. For our next project, we are going to use the stars. Now, we have all the same components, but this time I'm going to use this little guy here, and I'll show you what we're going to do with it. I have a piece of vanilla cardstock here, and I want this kind of offset to the lower left. I'm going to tape this down and then run that through my die cutting machine. I've also gone ahead, and you can see we have the bits and pieces. I'm showing you the different components we get from that. I have the Cascading Dots embossing folder, so I went ahead and embossed this panel just to give it a little extra character. I've laid down my all-purpose mat, and now I have our medium embossing pen. I'm applying a little powder, and now I'm going to literally just color with my pen around the edge of this star. So I want to go all the way around and just back and forth. This is very easy to do. And then I'm going to coat it with gold embossing powder. This is going to really add a nice detail to our finished card. So coat it in the powder, tap off the excess, and then we can use our heat gun to set this in place. You want to make sure everything's good and melted. My heat gun is very well loved. It's been around for a long time. Look at that detail around the edge. It's just such a pretty finish. Normally I use my VersaMark. I'll coat that in embossing powder, but I went ahead and cut it out of gold foil just to save a step. So we're going to use that for this card. And now I'm pulling out that acetate star shape. Now this one is a little bit larger because it's meant for the larger component of the shaker stars, but that's okay. We can still use it. So again, I'm going to that liquid glass. It just is a great adhesive and nice and strong. Applying it around the edge, and then I'm going to press this down, and I'll just go ahead and cut off that portion once it dries that's poking out to the right. While that's drying, I'm going to work on the rest of the card. I have a black piece of cardstock here that I'm going to adhere down to my top folding vanilla card base here. I love to leave a margin around the edges. I just think it's a really nice look. I've also cut this Merry Christmas sentiment with gold foil from the Yuletide Borders thin cut dies. So we have that we're going to use in just a moment. And you'll need some gold shaker stars. We also have the gold embellishing thread, so set that to the side, and we'll need that in just a moment. Now that this is dry, we can just cut off the edge flush there. And again, you can use that foam that comes with it, but you know, we'd have to add extra sequins because it's larger and it would just be hidden down in the bottom there. So I am using my 3D foam tape and I'm just gonna go around the edge. If you peel up the top, this is flexible and you can bend it around your shape. So that's what I'm doing, and then just tearing it and filling in the gaps here. We get a nice tight fit. That's perfect. So now we want to add in our sequin stars. I'm putting in a little pinch and it's all sticking to my fingers, so I decided it would probably be smarter just to pour it from the bag. I'm putting in a generous amount, and now I have cut a piece of vanilla cardstock just big enough to cover that and hold all of my stars in place. Isn't that pretty? Off camera, I added foam to the rest of the card, and now I'm just going to glue down this other element here. So this is what we got when we cut that star on the left. We're going to use this and just offset it slightly. And we're going to have a couple little star ornaments. So I'm going to let that dry. I always like to put a block so it dries flat. And now I have the micro glue dots. It's hard to see what I'm doing, but I'm putting that glue dot at the top of my star and attaching a little of that gold embellishing thread so it looks like our ornaments are hanging. I'm going to repeat that process over here. Put a little gold thread. I'm cutting it a little bit longer so I can wrap it around the back. Off camera, I tied a couple little bows out of that same thread, and I'm just pressing that down into our glue dot. And now I can flip this over. I'm going to remove the backing on the foam tape and then press that, make sure it's going up straight, wrap it around and press the thread right into the foam tape. So here's a little trick. I am applying glue over the top of that foam tape. Now, you definitely don't need it. The foam tape is very sticky, but this glue is going to create a little slippery layer that will allow me to slide this on my card panel if I need to adjust it at all. So again, it's much easier if you can be right over the top of it, but looks like we've got it in place. You can see I applied that Merry Christmas sentiment to the bottom, and here's our finished card. Isn't that pretty? This card was actually inspired off of several cards I saw on Pinterest, but I thought it was a great use for our shaker dies. So here's that shaker we made with the Serenity collection. And then again here, the second one we created, the see-through shaker with the Jingle Joy and that pretty embossed panel. And now let's look at some other artwork. I have this really fun shaker that I have used the glitter paper to create the star. And then this is from the Jingle Joy card making stamp, the little reindeer there. I have another see-through shaker with the sentiment inside. Similar, very similar to the heart card we made here, same design. And that is made with the Serenity card making stamp. I love that wreath. And here we have this cute little snowman shaker. This is from the Jubilee Crew stamp set. We just made a quick little shaker right on top of the card panel. Now, shakers don't have to be shakers. Here I've used the bits and pieces to create this. There's the shaker elements and then the negative pieces to make that border. Very fun card with leftovers. And here, this one I call a homespun Christmas. We have the inner portion of that star, and I just put that card together. Here I've used a gold foil star from the inner portion, and again those negative, the little tiny stars in the outlines to create this twinkle twinkle all is bright Christmas card. I also have created this scrapbook page. I did this same process here and made these elements for this really pretty winter formal layout for my niece. I do have a scrapbook or a process video for this one coming up soon. I hope you enjoyed today's project. Shaker cards are so fun, and I love that we can use the different elements of the shaker dies to get different looks. Tomorrow we're going to be creating with the 3D flower dies, so stay tuned for that. For today I have both the heart and the...
Mom, what's for dinner?
Seriously?